Welcome to Crosstalk Solutions. My name's Chris, and today we are taking a look at the Toolless mini rack from Ubiquiti. The model number on this device is U-Rack-6U-TL, and the MSRP is $249. All right, let's go ahead and open up the box. This is the first time that I am seeing one of these, so I am really looking forward to what this thing looks like. Here we have the scan here to get started QR code. All right, let's open this up, and right off the top we have a blank 1U 24-port patch panel. And I'm not sure if this works with like keystone jacks or what, so we're gonna have to take a look at this thing and figure out exactly what that's all about. Here's another getting started card. Get rid of this. And here we have the rack ready for assembly. So this, you can see here, is the front frame of the rack, and you can see the different markings for each of the 6 U's here. The U being one rack unit, and then the 6U meaning that it has 6 rack units, or basically 6 U worth of equipment can fit inside this rack. Also has some casters included. Now these are locking casters, so you can lock them down so this thing isn't rolling all over the place. And it is pretty sturdy as far as the metal. It's nice and thick, so I have no doubt that this can stand up to some decent network equipment. All right, more casters. Looks like some handles. And here's another piece of the frame. This is either the front or the back. And then looks like a whole bunch more pieces of frame here. And yeah, that looks like about it. All right, let's get rid of this box. And now it's time to go ahead and start assembling this 6U toolless rack. As you can see, I have built out the 6U toolless rack with some of my test equipment. We've got from the top down a UDM Pro. This is the included 24-port patch panel. Then we have a 24-port switch, a Qnap Nas, as well as the USP RPS power device, redundant power device. So there's been a lot of questions about this thing, so I'm going to try to answer as many of those questions as possible. Number one, these casters on the bottom actually work really well. They lock really well. It holds the thing in place, no problem. But what if you don't want to use the casters? If you don't want to use the casters, there are sort of little plastic nubs on the bottom that the casters stick into. So you could use this as kind of a desktop mount form factor rack, except for the fact that those plastic bits on the bottom, the little nubs that stick down, are hard plastic. They're not like rubberized at all. So if you're putting it on a surface like wood or something like that, there will be a tendency for those to scratch whatever surface it's sitting on. But you can use this thing without these casters, no problem. As far as this being an actual toolless rack, it 100% is. Everything that I set up here, I did not use any sort of tools whatsoever other than my fingers. So these side rails that hold in the equipment basically just sort of lock into place by just pushing them down into these slots that they're designed for. Each one of them has captive screws that line up with the holes on the side of Unify hardware. And I should actually say newer Unify hardware, because some of the older Unify hardware had the rack mount ears built in to the device. Those would not work in this rack. You have to be able to mount up or line up the screws for the rack mount ears properly. This thing is only designed for Unify equipment. One of the nice little features that it has is there's little lines that are sort of engraved into the side rails that help you line up the screws when you're putting the equipment in. Really nice little touch. I'm glad they added that. So even though these are captive screws that you don't technically need a screwdriver for, all of these captive screws do have both Phillips and flathead indentations so that you can tighten them with a screwdriver if you just want to snug things in a little bit more securely. Now you will notice that right here I have a Qnap Nas. This does not fit in this rack. Again, this rack is designed for Unify hardware only. You'll notice there's no sort of holes that you can mount any other type of equipment. And case in point, this thing is just sitting in here loose. I can very easily move it around. It just does not fit in this rack whatsoever. And even if it was the right length, the screw pattern for the rack mount ears on this particular Qnap Nas don't line up with the captive screws. And there's a little bit of a gap on each side, so it would not fit into this form factor of a case no matter what. So you cannot use non-Unify equipment. I shouldn't say that. There might be equipment that happens to share the same exact width and screw pattern for the rack mount ears of Unify hardware. If there's anything like that, it would work in this rack, but anything that does not fit those exact specifications will not work in this rack. Again, this is just sitting loose in here, and I would not run it in production just sitting loose in a rack. If you do have all Unify equipment, notice that you can install stuff in the front, but I also have a secret mystery device installed in the back of this rack as well. So for any Unify equipment that is sort of shorter depth and made to go either in the front or the rear of a rack, you can also use the captive screws on the rails in the back to secure different types of equipment, such as, again, this weird mystery device that I don't even know what it is that's sitting right back here. Finally, I was looking at a forum post on Reddit about this device, and people were asking if there is a wall mount option. There is not a wall mount option that I'm aware of, although you could, technically build a shelf and take off these casters and put it up on that shelf, but the device itself does not directly mount to the wall if you wanted it to be wall mountable. So there you have it. Now for $249, where do I see this rack being used? Well, it's sold out all the time. So it is a popular item on Ubiquiti's web store. But where I can see this being useful is if you are a Ubiquiti fan like myself, if you have an all Ubiquiti network, you can certainly use this rack and it's going to match the aesthetic of your Ubiquiti devices. Notice though, the 24-port patch panel here, one thing that would be nice, you can see that I do have a Keystone jack in here, so this does fit standard Keystone jacks, but it would be nice if they had silver ones, right? So to actually match a little bit better. Either silver Keystone jacks or Keystone, Cat 6 jacks, or just blank silver faceplates so that you can cover up any of the blank spots and not have all these sort of gaping holes in the front. So that would be a cool little accessory if they sold a pack of blanks for this 24-port patch panel, and then you could use whatever color keystone you want. The other place that I can see this rack being useful is if you are staging customer deployments, right? So if you build a lot of Unify systems for small businesses or for prosumer home users, you can stage all of the equipment in this rack very nicely, and it comes in and out of the rack super easily without having to put the rack mount ears on. But I would say if you are going to be building a rack that combines Unify equipment with other equipment, like if you have a Synology NAS or a Qnap NAS, or if you're using any sort of the edge router hardware or pfSense firewall, anything like that, you're not going to make perfect use of this rack, right? You're going to basically have equipment sitting on top of other equipment. This is made for only Unify equipment, period. So if you're sort of mixing and matching, this might not be the best option for you as far as racks go. And it's also quite small. I mean, it'd be interesting to me to see if Ubiquiti comes out with any larger racks. Like, it'd be nice to see a 15U version as well. But I have not heard anything about that or seen anything in the EA store other than this one 6U toolless rack. So as far as what I'm going to use it for, this is my test network equipment. So for now, I'm just going to keep my test equipment in this rack. It's easy enough to move around. You got these handles up top. You can lift the whole thing. It does roll around very easily on those casters. And yeah, that's about it. The one thing I will say, though, is if you're going to actually be utilizing this patch panel to wire things in from the wall, or down from a ceiling or in a wiring closet or something like that, maybe you want to take the casters off. That's where you don't necessarily want it rolling around if you actually have wired in a bunch of Ethernet cables into this patch panel right here. All right, so there you have it, a look at the 6U toolless rack from Ubiquiti Networks designed for Unify hardware. What do you guys think about this product? Let me know down in the comments below. Do you have other use cases where you would like to use this that I didn't mention in this video? I'd love to hear about that, so put all that information down below. All right, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you give me a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, please click subscribe. My name's Chris with Crosstalk Solutions, and thank you so much for watching.